Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Factory. I'm Eddie C, and together with my co-host Peter D, we're going to bring you in touch with people in and around the music business. This is the podcast that takes you up close and personal. Hello everybody and welcome to the Rhythm Factory podcast. My name is Eddie C, and to my far right is my co-host Mr. Peter D. Our guest for today is also from Belgium, and he's a very nice friend and singer-songwriter, Mr. Danny Bloebaum.
Hello.
Bloebaum. I said
it's a difficult name. It is Bloebaum.
Bloebaum.
Blue tree.
Blue tree. Okay.
Bloebaum.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in general before we start give you some questions and.
What do you want to know?
Well, what do you want to tell us?
What can we tell on camera?
Well, this is a show for all ages, huh?
All right, okay. No, I've been a singer-songwriter ever since I picked up the guitar because I remember my mom, who was a singer in those days, and I started, like everybody, playing a cover, and picked up the guitar, played a cover, and said, oh man, what are you doing? This is not right. So that's how I became a singer-songwriter, because not being able to play the covers.
Okay.
And that was at the age of 14, and then ever since, the guitar has been my traveling companion.
All right.
More as any kind of girl or woman, because they change, but the guitar doesn't change. It stays with you.
I think
it grows on you, a guitar. A woman
yeah.
doesn't grow on you, it peels you.
I'm not going to go into that discussion.
No, we won't, Annie. No, not
but, being a singer-songwriter, I also know that you worked. You told me that you also used to work for a publishing company.
Yeah.
And how did you experience being on the other side of the road? Because I know, singer-songwriters, we go to publishers because we want them to exploit our music and see that it gets out there. How was that for you, working on the other side of the tracks, as we would say?
Well, first of all, Eddie, you need to know that it's been a while. And in those days, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have any kind of new communication or Twitter, you name it. The only thing we had was a fax, a phone, and a book of the Medium, Medium France, the book. And that's how I started out in that publishing company. The owner, he gave me the Medium book, a phone.
And Medium is, by the way, for our listeners and international viewers, it's a book about a more or less a convention that they have every year in France to try for record companies to try to place their artists and make deals internationally for all in Europe and within the European, also worldwide, but people from all over the world come. A lot of new artists try to make their breakthrough at that. I guess you could compare it to a sort of the Cannes Film Festival kind of thing to a degree.
Yes,
that's
to a
sort
degree.
Of yeah.
And they bring out a book. They publish a book, the Bible they call it in those days, because every record company or every publishing company was in it. Yeah. So I started out from scratch. I was a songwriter, and those guys, we were three. They had a production company, so we made up the songs for different artists, and then this guy came to the conclusion, why don't we try to sell it ourselves and build up a publishing company? But we started, I didn't know the difference, you could ask me anything about anything, but not about publishing, because I didn't know shit about it. I knew more about the toilet seats in the Hilton than I knew about a publishing company, So that's the thing. I was thrown in at the deep end,
Thrown in at the deep end.
And after a while, we started to have some successes, because I made deals with companies in Italy, and I made deals with companies in Spain and in Denmark and so forth.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of trade you learn after a while.
Right.
And the thing is, it's like you said when you said earlier on, how does it feel as a songwriter to be on the other side? Well, for me, it wasn't that difficult, because I used to be a salesman. I used to be sales representative, and I used to be a sales manager in the good old days. And when I earned my money with a decent job. But anyways, we were able to combine it in those days. But I was a songwriter, and the opportunity knocked, okay, you come over, and you just sit there, here's your desk, here's your phone, here's your Medium book, And this is a standard contract. This is a publishing contract. Have a look at it. And in those days, it was really ridiculous. I mean, it was anything you signed in those days was so transparent that you could say like, well, this doesn't go. Nowadays, it is completely different. In those days, a publishing company meant something because you had to go and knock on doors, make phone calls, try to get people interested in whatever you were trying to get on the market.
Exactly.
Nowadays, the publishing guy just steps out of his office, closes his door, knocks on the door across his office, and there's the A&R manager. Whoa, we got 50% on this record just by crossing, the hallway. That's what happens. That's the difference. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, and it's pretty harsh of me to say that, but I don't think that a publishing company, unless they can present you deals like, for example, and I may mention this, Hooverphonic, it's got a big deal going in one of the Asian countries with they made a song for a car. I'm not going to name anything else, but that's what a publisher should do. And it happens one time in a blue moon, and they want 50% for it. And that's how you ask me, how does it feel as a singer-songwriter to be on the other side? It didn't feel right.
It just sucks.
But the only thing I could do, was I was the publishing guy and I was dealing with my own. So the only thing I could do was fuck myself, If it comes down to it, I was publishing my own songs,
sure.
in a company. Excuse me for the word. You'll cut it out if you have time to do that. Anyways, being in a publishing company wasn't my biggest dream,
Sure.
But it was something that gave me the opportunity to learn something about the business. Right. Yeah. So I stumbled left and right, and I made some bad deals and everything. Like everybody who starts out with anything without knowing the ropes, So that's how I figured it all out, by falling and stumbling and getting up, and it was a crazy time. I can tell you that.
I can imagine.
It was.
Yeah, I can imagine that most of the songs you write.
Yeah.
Your personal experiences in your life is actually audible in your music, I guess. And listening or looking at your latest album, Le Navigator.
Yes.
The Navigator, translated. It's an album done in French.
Yes.
It's a concept album.
Yes.
And I was wondering,
yes.
Can you tell a little bit more about the album, and what is the reaction you like to get from the audience? What is the message you like to get across?
I think like most artistic things, they fall out of the air. You're not going to sit at a table and you're going to say, like, I'm going to make a French album and it's going to be a concept album. It has to reach you in some way. And the way that it came up, I was in France. I regularly go there, south of France, Provence. Got a few friends there. And I made a translation of Imagine, the John Lennon song. And I made it in French, and a lot of people over there liked it. And they started talking to me about whatever was going wrong. I was there last year, was the year before there, and 3 years ago. And it's really going downhill in France, like it is, let's be honest, all over the place.
Yeah.
So I heard about the term smicard. That doesn't ring a bell to you. Does it ring a bell to you? Cameraman, smicard, doesn't say anything to you. I didn't know about it either. It's a guy who works for a wage which is lower than his, like if he would be unemployed.
Okay.
And they can't refuse the jobs because then they lose their income, which they have as a sort of support. Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole France is going downhill, and what's happening lately, we're not going to talk about it in detail, but it all has to do with people not feeling right about their own situation. So I was, in my days, I was a busker too. I mean, I was, somewhere playing on a square. I didn't sleep under a bridge. I slept in the Hilton. That's because of the seats. But
that's how I knew about the toilets.
I was a busker who slept in the Hilton. Let's put it that way. No, but I mean, I've seen the rough side of that kind of business. It's not a business anymore. It's trying to survive. And in those days, I still had that problem. I had that problem of, not earning too much money left and right. So I started playing on the streets, blah, blah, blah. So the concept came with the idea of a guy who has made it, and then suddenly loses it all, and winds up under a bridge and has to play for money. But this guy sees things going on in society. He sees the rich people getting richer, the poor people getting poorer. And that's actually the main issue of the album. That's some kind of statement like, hey, we have to find other values, you know? And we have to find a way to get those people out of the streets. And the homeless people should have, you know, like more than a blanket or more than a cardboard box, you know? And that's what I'm singing about. That's what I'm telling you about in Le Navigator. It's all songs with a few things which go back to my own history, but in general, it's all songs about what is going wrong. Mind you, I try to put some humor in it, and I try to put some nice words in the choruses,
right?
Because it's like Stromae does, you know, like he sings Alors on danse. Mm-hmm. And not too many people listen to the reality of the lyrics, because he's talking about people that work too hard becoming slaves and shit like that. Yeah. And that is actually what is happening. We're all becoming slaves, but people don't realize it. Eddie, people don't see it.
Yeah, well, I talk about
they
it all
keep
the time.
going down like this. The whole society goes down. It's only when we're going to hit rock bottom individually that we're going to realize that it's all going to the dogs.
That's usually the case. It takes usually a disaster before people come together. And the funny thing is, the first thing they turn to are the musicians.
Let's come up with to solve it. Yeah, AIDS things. I mean, Band-Aid.
Right.
You guys, you solve it. Yeah, I know, and that's what it's coming down to. Again, it will. I'm telling you this.
I mean, you write a lot of songs about mankind. About not only you write some love songs as well, but rarely. Rarely. But
I'm not in love.
Yeah, but but I mean, not the real commercial stuff. But I mean, basically, your songs have some kind of thing with love for mankind and what's happening around the world. I mean, I've heard some stuff that you don't have on this album, which is one song in particular which really went right through the heart. I'm thinking, wow, this song is deep.
Thank you.
And you also were involved in this the anti-AIDS song that you was also.
Oh, the milestone, the thing around my neck. Yeah, you want to know something about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you could.
You got enough tape, guys? Oh, it's not tape anymore. It's digital, Danny. Okay. Anyways, imagine yourself sitting in front of your television and somebody pops up on your screen and he's, like with chisels and he's putting his own name in his tombstone. That's what I saw on English television one day. And it's years ago, 87, 88, something like that. And on the tombstone, he was, like marking his own name. And underneath it, there was a message saying, open your eyes before ice closes them. And I was in 87, 88. And in those days, AIDS was still, like, whoa, let's stay away from whoa. Yeah. It wasn't a very popular disease. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it still isn't. But in those days, if you had AIDS, you knew you're going to die.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can go on until you're 120 with AIDS. I mean, figure of speech. But in those days, it was really something that people didn't want to talk about. And that was the whole problem. To make a very long story short, on the 1st of December, the song was shown on 7 European television channels. That was done. At the same day, practically simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So that's something I accomplished. But the real goal was to get, a lot of singers and a lot of artists together to do the song.
Right.
All of us, like We Are the World kind of thing. Save a Tears, the song. Yeah. But it all went wrong because of the fact, and I'm saying this now, and it's a good thing I can get this off my chest in front of a camera, is first of all, you had to fuck the politicians. Excuse me for the politicians.
You had to screw the politicians.
Yeah, okay. The politicians, they screwed me over. Yeah. Because there was no politician and there was no kind of party that would help me from that kind of side. Because they weren't interested, man. Hey, AIDS, that's for gay guys, Hey, come on, we don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm not gay, but I mean, whatever kills somebody, if he's gay or he's not married or he's married or he's black or he's white, it kills you.
Yeah.
And I wrote a song about it, and it was the truth. And that was something people can't stand, especially politicians and record companies. Don't tell them the truth. No. Don't do it. Right? But I did it in that song. And also the record companies helped me back. Because at a certain point in time, I had a few artists who wanted to go along in the whole project. Right. Thing was, record company said, oh no, not our artist. We don't want
too much of a touchy subject.
Voila.
Which
There
is
you
what
go.
they have. Which is what they have in the film industry as well.
Yes.
Some of the best films are films that we never see
No.
until they come on a local, let's say, local TV station, and like I mentioned to you about a film about autism. This woman.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's the same with the music. You know, a lot of music you hear and just, well, why haven't I heard this before? How come I don't know about this or that song? You know, and unfortunately, the industry can be very biased when it comes to the exposure of letting people express themselves. I mean, music is one of the best ways to express yourself. It is the universal language as far as I'm concerned, because you can hear a song in any language, and not knowing what the words are, the emotion, the way it's done, it's going to touch you one way or the other.
Yep.
You know.
Well, I was thinking, Danny. I mean, you told us that you like, you know, something like "We Are the World," a group of people, musicians,
Yeah.
performing your song. That brings me to something I want to quote from your website.
You want to read from a quote?
Yeah.
Quotes.
Yeah, it says on your website. It's I don't know if it's a funny line or just something real, but a fortune teller stated that one day some of your music will be recorded and performed by some major artists. Family and friends surely hope that this fortune teller was worth his money or her money. Are you a spiritual-minded musician, and do you believe something like that could happen?
I'll tell you where this originated from. It was just 2 years after I wrote Save the Tears, the song about the AIDS thing, and everybody was expecting, other friends and you know, people in the business, oh yeah, that's the song, man. I said, oh yeah, you know, you sort of like get drawn to a goal which you want to achieve. And I had a friend of mine who went to this fortune teller, and he said, Danny, you should go there, man. I don't believe in that, actually. I'm a spiritual person, but I don't believe anybody, you know, throwing some cards on the table saying, like, now you're going to have milk tomorrow, and the next week it will be lemonade. I mean, there's no way they can predict that. But I must say, I was there, and he spread some tarot cards on the table, and he started telling me things of which I thought, he isn't able to know that, or he's a very good spy, or he has a spy in my garden. I don't know. But he started telling some real weird shit, and I said, So I started to get interested, because if anybody tells you something positive about what's going to happen, you got to open up your ears, you know?
Sure,
yeah. They start talking to you in the wrong way. You say, oh, I don't want to be part of this. That's the way humans are. And are we spiritual at that moment? No. We are curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
People
Absolutely.
aren't spiritual. They're curious.
Yeah.
Because this guy comes up with things of, oh, this is something I don't hear in the bakery, you know? You see, so you get drawn to this kind of thing that says things about you. And I must say, a lot of things came out afterwards, which he predicted, strangely enough. But don't ever forget, if you go to a fortune teller, a lot of people start living the things that this fortune teller tells you.
Right.
Because you sort of like make a goal for your self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, absolutely.
High five on that one. He knows his English. All right.
But you know, I want to get back to the. Do you still think that it's possible that major artists are going to play your music, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the biggest international stars have recorded my music, but I mean, I wrote for a lot of people in the 90s, and I could really. I can't say I made a living out of it, because before I know it, taxes will be there. But anyways, it was a good time, because a lot of Belgian and Spanish artists recorded stuff of mine, and that was good. And I had a few things in Japan going, and all together, and that's no lie. Taxes. That's how many records I sold. About 1 million. Put my name on it.
All right, man. Yeah.
That's a good figure.
That's a lot of records.
That's a lot of records.
That's a lot of records.
That's a lot of records,
yeah,
man.
That is. But nobody knows me, because I'm, you know, as a writer, and guys who write music, they all know what I'm talking about. You're behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And actually, I find that a good thing. But I had so many songs that I thought, I have to make a new album, and I have to reach out to the public and get something going again, you know, and get a band going, because that's actually what I like doing. Because if you look at the whole business at this moment, I mean, don't go out to a studio anymore and record and start doing this and doing that and try to get it marketed or whatever, because nobody's buying anything anymore.
No.
they call each other up. Hey, we can download illegally Danny's new album. Go. That is what's happening, you know. And the thing is, no artist is protected against that whole shit. And I personally want to say in this program, if there's any artist feeling the same way about it as we do or I do, you know, concerning whatever you could earn with your music, I mean, we should make a kind of forum. We should make a kind of band like they do in the States right now. They're trying to, you know, like put it down, put it back to sleep, what's happening right now. Because before you know it, we'll all be working in a factory.
The factories that are not run by machines.
True. Very true. Very true.
The factories that are not run by machines. Before we go, we want to ask you. This is more on a more of a delightful side. We like to ask you, you know, what we ask most of our artists, if they have some kind of little funny experience or something. I'm sure you've had quite a few in your career, and listening to you talk, and me knowing you as a colleague as well. I mean, and friend. I mean, I'm sure you can tell us one of your funny stories that happened while you were in the video.
There's a lot of funny stuff. I would say don't break my mouth open, you know, because there's so much funny stuff. I mean, it's like Spinal Tap. Everybody has his Spinal Tap moments, huh? You know,
Absolutely,
the movie Spinal Tap. I have to go back because that's a funny story that I remember. Is when I was about 15, 16 years old, I had my first band. Not Band 8, but a real band, you know. So we started playing, and one day we had to play in this rather small pub. And one of our friends had constructed actually a lighting box. Mm-hmm. It was in wood with all switches on there and buttons. And and he had spots, and to us it was, that looks great what he's done, you know. We were 15, 16 years old. We got our own fucking light show. This is gonna be going for it, you know.
Yeah.
But thing was, when we were in this pub, you know, he was, you know, like putting everything in place on his own little table with the box on there and with all that stuff, and the spots were there and blah blah blah. And the bass player, you know, he started sound check, and next to this guy, he's dead. The guy is dead. Not that day. He didn't die that day. Don't get me wrong, but he's dead right now. So he stood next to a heater kind of system, a heater, and there was a tube, you know, like going up until the ceiling. It was a metal tube. And he was standing next to it and trying out his lights and everything, and the bass player, and the pipe broke loose and fell down top of his head to the hospital. We didn't have any light that evening.
Oh wow!
He was in the hospital.
Oh man!
Oh man!
Was he okay later on?
Yeah, he was okay, but he never spoke the same language anymore.
All right. Hey, listen, we're coming out to the end of the show.
Yes.
We want to thank you very much, Danny, for
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure, and
thanks for the sandwiches anyway, and for the champagne. Thank you.
well, that's
No problem, man.
Okay, champagne. Anyway, no, we want to thank our crew, of course, Gijs and Frank behind the cameras, Charles for the promotional thing and welcoming people, Ramona, who does pictures for us, and most of all, we want to thank you all for joining us once again on behalf of our guest today, Mr. Danny.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well,
Bloebaum. You say Daniel the 14th. That's my newest artist name. Say it, right. Daniel the 14th.
Okay, yeah. On behalf of Daniel 14th.
Yeah.
And my co-host, Mr. Peter D, we'd like to say thank you. But before we go, remember to go on Facebook, click on our like page, subscribe to our podcast, and you know, once again, if you want to know any more information about Daniel the 14th and any of the other artists we have in here, please go to on Facebook to the Rhythm Factory podcast, and you can also write us a personal email, also in requests to getting in contact with Danny the 14th.
It used to be the 12th, but we got over that.
Okay, but you can also get in contact with us, and that's at the Rhythm Factory Podcast at gmail.com. Once again, my name is Eddie C, and we'd like to say, see you around.